and welcome back to the Quilters Candy Shop, where you will find sweet treats for the discerning quilter. I'm Carrie, and I'm so excited that you're here with us today because today is the last step of our Old Garden Baskets Quilt sew-along, and they are turning out fantastic. Okay, we're going to get right into it because today I'm going to show you 4 different techniques for laying out your blocks. Now, each one of these techniques might be more appropriate for different types of quilts, and so you can just put this in your repertoire and use them as it's more efficient for you. But I think you could use any one of these techniques for this quilt, and the 4th one is my favorite. So let's get started sewing something sweet. Okay, here I've got my blocks ready to go, and we're going to talk about 4 different ways to lay out your blocks. The first way is to simply follow the pattern example. Particularly if you're making an exact replica, it's really easy just to lay it out exactly how it's laid out on the pattern. Or if you're doing something different, like my blocks are different colors than these, so I would have to assign, say this one's navy, this one's green, this one's yellow, this one's blue, something like that. Then once you have those assigned, then you can just lay it out as you see it. The second way to lay out a quilt is to just start randomly placing out the pieces. So you know you want these colors separated. You know you've got some lights, some darks. So you just can toss them out. And for people who like puzzles, this is probably their favorite way to do it, because there is just going to be one great way that this is going to go together, and you are willing to take the time to rearrange and adjust. So if you're doing this type, what I would recommend is just getting them kind of randomly tossed out, just so you can spread out the colors and the patterns. And then lay a row across the top. So let's say that one's going to go there, then one of these, then for sure I want a dark in there somewhere, and maybe a yellow. And then build down one side. So get another one of these. I'll get a green in. Maybe one of these guys. And I don't have this one yet, so we'll put this one here like this. Okay. Then you start kind of filling in. And pretty much this is the way it goes. You just set all these in. Like I said, it's super random, because all you got to do is first get your spacing. So you're really just setting these out to get an idea of where everything's going to go. How many, if you've got 4 across and 5 down. There we go. Okay, so that's your first attempt. Now you have to take some time moving things around until you get them in the right place. So for example, I think these 2 should not be next to each other, so I can flip that. But I've got a lot of these light teals, so I'm going to have to mix those around a bit. So I think I'll switch this one with this one, because I don't want these 2 greens together. And actually, it's not looking too bad already. We replace this green with this green so that I can move this green down to the open hole. Now, I might not want those 2 greens so close to each other, and I may need to have some yellow kind of down here, so I might flip this, move the green over, put this basket here. So you can see every time you move something, you might have to move something else. And after a while, it all comes together like that. Maybe I don't want these two baskets in this same row, so I can just switch one from the other side. Like that. All right, that's not too bad. My yellows are all separated. My greens are all separated, except this green and this green are in the same row, so I may just switch this like this. There we go. My darks are all separated. I don't think I have anything, like in the same row. So this would be a perfectly good layout, or I could spend some more time rearranging. But to me, it's a lot of work, particularly if you have smaller blocks or a lot more. Maybe you have 7, 8 across and 10 deep. That's a lot of block moving. So I'm going to pick these up and show you my third way to lay out. Okay, so I've randomly picked up my blocks. I think I tried to get my same blocks together just for ease. So the first one was to match the pattern cover. The second one is random puzzle pieces, where you have to just keep rearranging until you get your puzzle put together the way you want. The third way is called one of each. This takes just a little bit of prep work. If you have things that are matching, you're going to split them in the same order. That's the first thing. You're going to set this pile aside, and you're going to use one pile, and you're just going to get a basic idea of side by side what you don't want touching. So I for sure want to get these separated from each other. I want my blues to be separated from each other. So you're kind of doing a little bit of, it's like a little mini layout. So there's 4, we'll call this one 4 right there. And then maybe like that. So I need 4 across, and I've got 10 blocks. And already I can see this doesn't have any dark. So maybe I switch this with this, and this with this, and this with this, and now my darks are separated, my teals are separated, my yellows and greens are separated. So I'm going to take this and put it up. So there's the first block, second, third, fourth, and then, so I'm going to put out all 10. Now I can see that these two teals right on top of each other, it's not horrible, but it's not really my favorite. So maybe I'll move this block over like that. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now you just repeat that. So even though you are doing a little rearranging, you're only doing it with these 10 blocks till you get these looking how you want. And then you just take your stack and imitate it again. So I'm going to take my first one. There is my little floral. I'm going to put my floral right here. And look at that. All the colors are separated, and I only had to do one layout. I just simply throw this together, and I'd be perfectly happy with it. So I'm going to collect these all up, and I'm going to show you one more way to do your layout, what I think is my fastest and easiest, although this one went together really easily, I'm going to pull these all together and we'll lay it out one more time. All right, so I collected up the blocks one more time to show you the fourth way to lay out your blocks, and this is my favorite. It works every time, and that is what I call the diagonal hopscotch. And basically you're going to put everything in a diagonal, every other one. It does take a little bit of prep work, so what I'm going to do is divide by colors, or you can divide by lights and darks. But for this quilt, I'm going to divide by color, which I kind of have already because this is the third time I've picked these up. So if I have 4 across the top, then I want 4 separate piles. So I'm going to put these in with my teals. So I have 4 different colors. If I had 5 across the top, I would make 5 different colors. Like I might take this one out and make that a separate color story. But for this, I want 4, so I'm going to put this right in here. All right. Now what this does is it helps you get the pieces that you want separated, because we're going to lay on the diagonal. And what that means is all the colors that I do not want touching, I want in the same pile. So let's start with the yellows here. I'm going to put out 1. Okay. And then on the diagonal, I'm going to put out the next one, and I'm going to go every other. If I had 3 different yellows, I would then probably put the next one here would be a different one. But I have 2 yellows, so I'm going to put this like this. And then this one here. I also want to keep my blues separate. I've got 4 blues here, or 2 different blues. So I'm going to put this blue. These are my dark blues, I guess I would say. Like this. So you can already see anything that's in the same diagonal row is not going to touch each other top and bottom or side to side because they're in the diagonal. Let me see now. So I have a lot of teals, so I probably am going to want to get those laid out next while I've got big long lines to work with, so that so they get more spread out. So like this, every other one, and then this one, this is just 3 in this row, but I've got 4, right? 2 of that one and 2 of this one. So this one is going to go down over there in the repeat area. And then I don't want to put another teal there, so probably this will be my greens, which means I think that's got to go there. Let's see what happens with the greens here. Like this, right? Okay, let's carry these across down on the other side. Green has to go, my greens have to go here because I only have 2. This teal is a single, so it has to go there. This goes here. Yeah. Okay, so here are all my yellows, my blues. I've got 2 rows of teal, and I've got teals in the corner, but they're spread apart from the other teals, and my greens are separated, and I think it has a nice layout. And I only had to do one thing. So by putting items you don't want to touch on the diagonal, you're automatically setting yourself up for an easy layout. Now that we have this laid out, let's put the sashing on. Here are my cut sashing pieces, and these are going to go only on the inside column of the blocks. So we do not have to take time to lay these out. We can simply put them on the pieces as we go to sew it. I'm going to put this piece on here on the left side of these 3 blocks. We don't have to put it on the first one because these are just joiner sashing. Once I have those 3, I'm going to pick this up, and take that to my sewing machine. Now, all you have to do is line up your sashing, but when you go to sew, you're going to sew on this side so you can manage your seam allowances and get a nice scant 1/4 inch. All right, meet you right back here. Okay, and here are my 3 blocks with the left hand side on it. Now you can choose. You can put all the sashings on the left hand side and lay them back out so that you can make your rows, but I rather just like to get this row done. If I didn't have to bring it back here to show you how this looks, I would have just kept this at the machine and sewn that piece together and sewn this piece together and come and got that one and added it on. But I just want to show you the first row step by step. So if you bring it back, make sure you've got it in the right order. And then I'm going to sew this piece onto here and this piece onto there. So I'm going to take these 2 pieces, these 2 sets, back to the machine and sew the sashing onto the other block. Now I have my pairs complete. And again, if I weren't bringing this back to show you each step, I would have just done this immediately at the machine. And I would have done this whole row all at one time. But I do want you to note that I am not pressing the sashings in between. I'm going to sew this one on, and then I'm going to do all the pressing of the seam allowances at one time. So let's get this one sewn, and I'll be right back. I have got my row put together, but before I lay it down there, I want you to see that the seam allowances point toward the sashing. So that is going to make everything lie nice and flat. Here it is, first row complete. Now, that probably only took me about 5 to 10 minutes to put that whole thing together. So now you go on to the next row. I'm going to take my sashing and put it on the left side of each of these 3 blocks. And then I'm going to go to the sewing machine. So I'm first going to sew my sashing on each block. Then I'm going to sew these 2 blocks together and this block with this block, and then the 2 sets together, press it, and I'll have my second row done. All right, let's see how fast I can make that happen. Here it is, row number 2. Look how cute that looks. Okay, so I'm going to go on to do row 3, 4, and 5, and then we'll meet back here for horizontal sashing. Okay, and here it is, the last row. And look at that, everything's coming together. So cute and fresh. I just love these colors together. So the next thing is to put in our horizontal sashing. And that is these pieces. If you followed the instructions in the pattern, you've already got these pieced together. If you've just only got them cut, go ahead and piece them together now. Get them cut the proper length that the pattern instruction says. Don't try to match it exactly to your rows. Every row here could be different. So that's why you want these pieces to all be exactly the same. It's going to average out your rows and you're going to have a much more square quilt. In this case, I do sew each strip onto each row separately. So I just do all of this one by one along the bottom. And then I will go ahead and press it. Because it's longer, it's going to be much easier to press this over and then add this piece on when it's already pressed. So sew this on and press it. Sew this one on and press it on down the line. You will have 4 horizontal strips to piece, and then we'll come right back. And I am back with the first row. So now you can see how this is going to look. So this is what you're going to do to these additional 3, and there is not one to be put on this end. The way you put these together is with a minimum of 5 pins, and here's what to do. Put that right sides together along the bottom, and you're going to put in a pin to hold one end. And I like to pin that seam allowance so that it doesn't flip up on me at some point. Then go all the way down to the other end, making sure your strip is straight and it doesn't get twisted in there. And come all the way down to this end, line it up, and put a pin in. Okay, and now you're going to take your ends and fold them together. And you will have this little loop of your strip that goes inside your fold of your block row. That is your center. Now you can pin it right on the center, but I tend to pick one of these seam allowances and go ahead and pin that. Might as well help myself out. So there I'm pinning that seam allowance, and then do that again with this in between these 2 blocks. So I line up my pins. Lick your finger. That's really important. Lick your finger so you can get a good grip on that. If you don't lick your finger, it's going to slide. I'm just telling you. So lick your finger and then fold that seam allowance. Put a pin, and then you're going to do the other side as well. So it's just 5 pins is all you need for this size of a row. So like that. Fold that together right there. Lick your finger. It really does help. And then pull that loop up. I like to let it hang so it kind of hangs into the right spot. There we go, like that. And line it up and pin that seam allowance. Now it's going to be super simple to run this through your machine. Even though this is small, put that down on the back side because it doesn't have any seams, and sew your scant 1/4 inch along here so you're keeping all these seam allowances going the right direction. I was wrong. I'm sorry. There is one seam allowance, and that's where this piece gets put together. So just keep an eyeball on that and make sure that's going the right direction, doesn't get twisted, and sew that, and we'll come back and lay it out. Here is row number 3, which is the last row that we have to put the horizontal sashing. So now we're going to sew this row to this row, this row to this row. So I'm going to do all that, press it, and bring it back, and then we'll work on the borders. Okay, look at that. Just one seam to go, and then we're going to put the background framing border around the outside. All right, here it is. The inside is complete. Check it out. It's so cute. I just love this color story. It's very fresh, and I just think it looks so great. I hope you're liking yours as well. I think this baskets will look good in just about any kind of combination. Well, it's time to move on to the first border. The first border is a background border, and you should have these already cut and sewn together and cut to the proper lengths. 2 of them are going to be on the side, and then 2 of them are going to be for the top and bottom. So you will want to put your side length on first on both sides, and this is just like putting on the sashing. You're going to put it, match it up on one end, match it up on the other end, pin, 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 and sew. And you're going to sew with the border piece down so you can manage all of these seam allowances. Okay, it's up to you. Time to get our borders on. Here is my first border on. I still have to do the other side, but I forgot to mention, and I wanted to tell you before you got too far, that the borders are optional, both of them. So if you wanted, you could leave it at just the baskets, take it to your quilter, have it quilted, and then just put the binding. And that is kind of the more modern and current way people are finishing quilts, because then you only have to buy a back quarter tower and a background, or pre-cut squares or whatever, and just a background, and you don't have to buy the yardage that makes borders. This pattern looks really great by adding at least the background border, because then you actually get your finished edge of the basket. So you can see on this side that is unfinished, and you could just bind that and be done, or add this border. And I really like at least this border so that you can see the finished edge of the baskets. I hope that's understandable. I'm pressing my borders out, so I'm going to put my other one on, and then the top and bottom. I'll come back with the finished background border, and then we'll talk about the next border. There it is. It's so cute. Very light and fresh, and that was my goal with this color palette. This is the Lakeside Julep color story, and I just think it's adorable. We do have this kit available. For this quilt, my goal was to have a really light and fresh quilt, and so I am not going to be putting on the second border, that is the color border. If you want the outer border, you put it on exactly the same way as you did this one. Follow the cutting instructions, cut the pieces exactly right, put the sides on first, top and bottom on second, and it'll come out beautiful. Now, if you bought any of the kits from us, the second border was included, so you should have that. If you want to do a different border, that's up to you, or if you want to go without the border, that's fine too, and that's what I'm doing. I'm going to go without a border here. So the very last step is to sew a scant 1/4 inch. It's actually a very scant. It's closer to 1/8 of an inch. Stay stitching all the way around your outer edge. And this will keep your fabric from stretching out of shape. It'll help some of this fraying so it won't go past too deep into your quilt. And also it will help make these pieced borders on these corners that'll help keep that stitched tight. And your long arm quilter will thank you for it, for sure. Well, I just love the way this one turned out. Whatever you decide to do, I'm sure will be beautiful. Now, let's get this wrapped up and off to the quilter. Okay, well that's it. I hope you had a great time making this quilt. I think they turned out really great, and I hope you reserved a spot at your quilter so you can get this done right away. Now, speaking of your quilter, this is my quilt in a package to go to my quilter. I also include a little note for my quilter, and on here I put the size that I measured it, the color of thread that I want them to use if possible, and any notes. Like for example, on this I'm using my little mushroom for my backing fabric. On my note it says that the backing is directional, so she makes sure she knows to put that right side up. I always let my quilter decide what kind of pattern they want to put on there, but in this case, as I had mentioned before, I really wanted a more modern look, so I've asked her to do something that's more boxy, more angles, not necessarily cute florally. I'm going to do something like that, a little more vintage on this one, so it looks a little older, a little old-fashioned, but on this one I wanted it really modern. So I put a note about that as well. And anytime we can make the quilter's job a little easier, we save time and money. I hope you enjoyed making your Old Garden Baskets quilt, and I hope you'll join us again, because starting at the end of June, we're going to be starting our Winter Garden Block of the Month. You can see that on our website now, and we are taking pre-orders on the kit. It's a 9-part series, and it'll be one video per month, because each block is a pretty good amount of work to get accomplished, and this way you can spread it out over more time. The pattern is actually a full booklet by Nancy Rink, and it's usually $26. We are including the book in the kit for free, and I think it's going to be great. The fabric line is called Arrival of Winter by Sandy Gervais from Riley Blake Designs, and it is really pretty. It's got a lot of peppermint, wintergreen, spearmint. It's going to be so beautiful. So I hope you'll join us for that, and you can always find our kits and patterns at www.thequilterscandyshop.com. That's SHOPPE shop.com, and you can get more information about our upcoming Block of the Month. I really appreciate you joining us for this series, and I hope you'll join us again for another, and we'll see you again. Bye!